it's said that we live in a pressure environment, a pressurized environment. Well, actually, it's a density gradient we live in, not a pressure gradient.
Okay. So, because it's more dense. Okay. And what dictates, what's the unit of measurement of that denseness then? Or
Well,
how do we measure the density? You're on about the pressure outside versus...
Weight versus volume.
Well, it depends. You can measure it in a variety of ways. Are you referring to the density of the atmosphere, or are you referring to the pressure, pascals?
So wait a minute. So what I'm asking here, you've just said weight versus volume, which is a good way to do kind of density. So in a vacuum, if I dropped a feather and a brick, how do both fall at the same rate?
How does a vacuum help you with gravity?
It doesn't. It's subtracting the force of pressure and showing that two different density objects have the same or equal result.
Well, it's removing the air resistance against the objects in question, right?
Yeah.
So what does air resistance have to do with gravity?
Wait a minute.
What's the definition of gravity?
The force by which things are... I actually don't know the definition. I've never really looked it up.
There's two. You can either have Einstein's, which is the bending of space-time, or you can have Newton's, which is the attractive masses between the attractive force between masses. Which one do you accept the most? Most people go for Newtonian.
Yeah, go on then. That.
Yeah. Well, if you have an attractive force between masses, the Earth would be one mass, and the wrench or the microphone in your hand would be the other mass. Correct?
Yeah.
So by definition, if you were to try and prove gravity by that definition, how would you prove that there is a force between your hand and the wrench, or between the Earth and the wrench? Would you not need another mass of equal or bigger size than the Earth, bring it in close proximity to the microphone, and then make watch the microphone go the opposite way because of the attractive force of the bigger mass that you've got? Say, for example, Jupiter.
Yeah. So your definition of all of this is that what your belief is that the mass causes a force, and it's that mass that pulls things together, kind of.
No, that's Newtonian
That's
gravity.
your belief.
Density differential. That's it. No force. That's
what you believe.
Right. All right. So the density differential between two objects pulls things together.
Yeah.
So with that then, and given the fact that we can measure that force, whatever we call it, we can measure the effects of the force. Sorry, whatever we call it, because we can assume. Well, no, we can't assume. But if I got a really dense object, a huge dense object, let's say a 1-ton lead ball, and I put a feather near it, there would be no discernible effect on that feather towards it. Is that what you're saying? There would be an effect that would pull that feather towards it.
No.
Well, that's what your argument is.
That's what you're
saying. The dense
saying.
ball would attract the feather.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, Ranty Flat Earth, Mark Doxy, let's see who this guy is, Fish, I think that's Jose, Dean, Chris, Chocolate Sane, Arwin, and Alan. Good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Great to be here.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hello.
Yo.
A quick question, Dean. I'm gonna break the ice here. Dean, you're a pilot, right?
Yeah, amateur pilot. I haven't got my pilot's license yet, but I am going for it when I've got time.
Okay, but have you fly a plane yet? You fly, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, quick question. What do you make out of the claim that if you fly a few hundred miles a distance, once you reach your high peak, do you dip your nose down? What is the force applied to it? How does it work if you don't be dipping your nose down around the curve? What do you make out of this claim?
Well, to be honest, in a light aircraft, you're always dipping your nose and pulling your nose up as well, because through wind shear, cloud cover, and pressure, you have different. You have different lift operating on the aircraft. So if you want to stay at an altitude, you've manually got to correct to it. So you've got to look at the altimeter and you've got to say, oh, crap.
What about the commercial airplanes, like the big ones that they reach a high altitude and they just fly level until reaching the distance?
Again, they'll do the same thing, but they have an autopilot system. I suppose I could. I'm not instrument rated, but they have an autopilot that does all that for them.
So you assume it basically
operates. Well, no, the autopilot works. So
but you assume that it does that because you haven't actually checked it out yourself. You've just been told that it's supposed to be doing that.
No. My point is, it will be doing that every, potentially every minute, because when you're flying in airspace, you'll get to certain parts of airspace that will have less lift. So. And some of these could be really, could be jarring and shearing as well. So you've got to correct from the fact that this huge volume of air is just pushing
assuming that.
Let's make it simple. Do you agree that if we live on a ball and you fly from England to America, you fly over some circumference of the ball and you have to fly in a downward angle over the way? Yeah?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right.
Yes.
When you do you reset your gyroscope, your attitude indicator at the start of each flight?
And ground-based altimeter, yes.
And when you land at the other side of your journey, if you go for a long journey, you fly over many, 6,000 miles or so across the Atlantic, somewhere into America. Have you ever flown that far?
Well, on a commercial aircraft, but no, I've only ever flown like 300 or 400 miles or less, actually. So.
Even with 300 or 400 miles, you would expect that when you put your nose back on the floor and you put your wheels back on the floor and land, you would expect to have flown over some element of the circumference of the Earth, right?
Yeah, correct.
Does it ever show it?
Does whatever show it?
The attitude indicator, because if you've flown over it to some degree, the attitude indicator would indicate that you've flown through this, like the floor, because you've landed in a different position on the sphere, right?
You mean the artificial the horizon powered by a gyroscope, or because
the attitude indicator?
Yeah, because normally you have an angle attack indicator, but those can be analog or digital. It depends what you're flying. But yeah, on the analog ones, you don't need to reset them or anything.
I'm on about the ones that you pull to cage, and then you take off, do your journey, re-land the other side, and then you observe that the attitude indicator is in the same position that it was when you took off. Yet you've just flown 400 miles over the curvature of the Earth, and it doesn't show it. Do you have any reason for why that might be?
Only assumptions.
Oh, assumptions are acceptable if you admit that that's what they are.
Oh God, yeah. No, I assume a great many things.
I know. We didn't get to the 93 million mile sun.
Yeah, no. I assume it's a large distance, not a small local one. That's all I can say.
You assume there's a force from the Earth that attracts the objects to the ground?
From the mass of the Earth, yes.
Right, but that's been debunked by Einstein. See, when we asked you, you said Einstein, and then in the break, Anthony asked you, and then you didn't know which one was which. He told you, and then you went, oh, I'm going to go with Newtonian. But that's not in effect.
Okay.
Tumbleweed. It's not really okay. You're using a definition of gravity, which science, the one you believe in, the word of mouth of men and peer review and consensus opinion, that science doesn't use that gravity.
Okay.
Not really. You keep saying okay like it's acceptable. It's not.
No, I'm okay. It's not acceptable.
Yeah. Like most things in the heliocentric world, it's just based on assumption and incorrect understandings.
Okay.
Not really.
Yeah,
the world opinion is that we're on a sphere.
A
That's a bit of a problem. You keep saying okay, but you have all these beliefs. You tell us quite openly they're beliefs, they're assumptions, and you don't see any problem with this, even though the entire world and their view about the shape of it is based on the same thing you have. assumptions and beliefs. That's all you have for this sphere belief that you have.
Is that not what you have, though?
No. When we measure things, we measure them and look at what we can see, and we see them. And when we see them, we get told by people like you that we can't really see them because mathematically there's a sphere Earth in the way, even though we do see them. So I don't have to assume anything. I just look at a building and go, look, there's a building really far away. And then someone like you comes along and says, that building's not really there. That's actually a mirage. You can't really see it. There's a curve of the Earth. And earlier when you were talking about refraction being negligible, according to the refraction you believe, it's bending 7/6 the radius of an assumed Earth. So it's bending considerably, even though you think it's minor. I noticed that point earlier and made a little note. But there we go. That's just the world you believe you live in and assume you live on. It's bullshit, but that's a big problem.
For how long have you looked at this, Flat Earth, Dean? Have you researched a little bit before?
Yeah, and I've spoken to a group called FE Core as well that does like long range laser tests and microwave tests and that kind of thing across. I think.
Do you think you were gonna come in this hangout, Nathan's show, and like debunk everything, and you think this was kind of a joke and it was easy to refute, and you realize that all you got is a belief and
absolutely not.
Suppositions?
No, absolutely not. 100% not. If I came in here, and I'll be honest with you now, I came in here to practice something that I'm wanting to get better at, and that's humility in the face of degradation and assault. And I, listening to one of the previous shows, I knew that Nathan has got a very condescending kind of stance when talking to people. So I wanted to see if I could.
He's not condescending. He's aggressive.
Yeah, that. But you know, I want to be able to speak to aggressive people and never lose my calm or cool kind of thing. So this is an exercise in that.
Trying to teach him to be condescending.
Can I ask you something though?
Yeah.
Would it have to be that way if you could just come in and answer the questions that you were asked?
I'm still waiting for.
I mean, instead of having, does it bother you at all that everything you came in here with are assumptions?
No.
That we're just looking for.
Why do you say no to that so flippantly?
That's the point. I've got aggressive with you. I keep pointing out these contradictions and assumptions, and the response I get from you is okay, and my reply is no. It is not okay. But then you'll reply, okay. Yeah? To believe something is ridiculous. To prove something would be scientific. And you have come in saying science says. Science doesn't...
You're asking me to prove something on a scale of which I can't simply look at and go, haha, look at this.
You don't have to do a thing, sir. Right? We have had 2,000 years of an assertion that we live on a sphere. Now, we are told by people like you, and including you, that the body of science says so, right? The body of science has had 2,000 years to prove it with science, and you have dick, nothing, nada, belief. That's all you have, and to you, that's okay. To me, it's an absolute outrage. We are told this is true. We are told this is fact. It's not. It's your belief.
I'm still waiting for the argument of the centrifugal force to finish.
I can explain that if you let me.
We moved on to another subject.
Awesome.
But you never actually, you never actually made that work really.
Yeah. So if you imagine, we've got I think we use a merry-go-round or something again.
Yeah, sure, fine.
And it turns at 1 revolution per day. Now, odds are, I'm not gonna. It doesn't matter how big you make that.
Okay.
So wait a minute. The centrifugal force on it is going to be negligible.
Hang on a sec. Just carry on.
Not. Not if it's big enough.
I was going to say, what were you going to say then when you said it doesn't matter how big you make it? What was the rest of that sentence?
If you're just on about centrifugal force, as in the effects of whatever we all call, change in the uniform pull of gravity, which is, how we detect whether we're going left or right.
Carry on the
centrifugal force, not gravity.
Carry on the sentence. It doesn't matter how big you make it. What?
The the merry-go-round, it doesn't matter how big you make it if you are only dealing with the change in direction, because that change in direction is still the same no matter how big you make it.
Yeah,
What
but
about the
what about
edge
the rim
velocity?
velocity?
Oh, yeah.
Which is
What
where
about
we
the
live.
edge
Oh yeah.
velocity?
Oh no, Jesus, yeah. The wind would blow you to high heaven if you went out
Right.
at 1,000
Oh, you were
miles an hour.
swearing. You say negligible.
So if we have a rotation of 1 degree,
Oh, so wait a minute. If we're talking about air, and air hitting us, if that air was stationary, then absolutely, yeah.
well, no,
Jesus.
we're not really talking about the air. We're talking about the 1 revolution per day, but with a huge radius that we're told we live on.
Hold on a second, I've got to get clarity on that. Sorry, do you think that the air is like Velcro to the Earth, or do you think it's a separate reference frame?
I wouldn't call it Velcro, but it's not a separate reference frame.
It is.
No, I said it isn't a separate reference frame.
No, I know you said that, and I just told you it is a separate reference frame.
Well,
Have you never
no,
heard
not
of the
really.
Coriolis effect in reference to Earth?
Well, yeah.
Well, you might want to look into what it says.
Well, how big of that is that on a force on me right now? None.
Sorry, we have 2 separate reference frames. According to your bullshit religion, a spinning sphere Earth, and then a separate reference frame, the atmosphere, which is detached from that separate reference frame, the spinning ball Earth.
No, it's Velcro to it in your analogy.
No, I asked a question. Try to open your ears. Is it Velcroed to the atmosphere?
Yes.
That was my question. I did not assert that it was Velcroed to anything.
Yes, and if I have those 2 options, then yes, it is 100% Velcroed to the surface.
Sorry, that wasn't an option. You seem to be deaf. I am stating a fact about your religious belief, and you are contradicting the facts of your model. You have 2 reference frames. 1, the spinning ball Earth. 2, the atmosphere outside of that reference frame. Separate, not Velcroed. Please do not answer this. It is not a question.
Okay, what do you want me to say then?
I'm still waiting to finish
Okay,
the
yeah.
whole concept about centrifugal force, because what I know of it is that if the radius of the rotating object is very small, then if it's rotating very slowly, then yeah, you will barely feel anything of it, because, well, the downward acceleration force will be much stronger in relation than the forces exerted by the object rotating. If the object becomes larger and rotating at the same angular speed, then at the edges of that rotating object, the forces will increase significantly. And it will, the larger the object becomes, the more dramatic the centrifugal force becomes, still rotating at that same speed. So if you then size up the merry-go-round to Earth radius sized, the amount of force, despite just rotating 1 cycle a day, would be very much measurable and noticeable.
So if we take a long arc, which is the arc circumference of the Earth, and we were traveling down this arc at 1,000 miles an hour on a cart or something, on a track or whatever, and this track curves exactly the same curve as the Earth, you're saying that I would definitely notice that I'm changing direction?
No.
Okay.
No, what I mean is that if the Earth was a spinning ball with the circumference that it has, then there should be a measurable, significant force exerted by the motion of the spinning.
But would you not have to measure that force in relation to another medium that kind of encapsulates
no, you don't.
the Earth?
If you are in a centrifuge, one of those spinny things, and you are in there, you don't need to relate that to anything else. It doesn't really matter even what direction you are. You will feel that centrifugal force being asserted to you.
Not even feeling, you would see evidence of a centrifuge if we were on a spinning ball, because the atmosphere itself is gas. And if you get even a slow spinning 1 revolution per day, but huge radius Earth.
Correct, but that's not even that's on top of that point. The thing is, if we would feel it, and yes, the wider the radius become, despite these slow rotation cycle, you would start to feel it if the circumference of the rotating object is wide enough.
But the problem,
you would absolutely notice, because
thanks for totally derailing my point, Arwin. That wasn't what I was going to say.
But that is on top of that.
Let me finish this point first, and then I'll you can berate me for something else. But the point there is that centrifugal force, you're asking me to be relative to the outside of that merry-go-round or cat going around a track or something.
Internal, within.
No, but I have to put myself...
Doesn't really matter if you're on the outside or on the inside.
No,
if you are motioning with it in that rotation cycle, you will feel the centrifugal force being applied to you.
Absolutely. But I will feel it as a change in whatever force is pulling me down, as in I feel a lateral motion. That's what you're on about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so my change in direction, so my vector change in direction in relation to the center point is 0.001 degree every minute. Would I feel that?
Yes, because you have an edge velocity. We have said this to you 3 times.
No,
you are in an open system.
1,000 miles an hour. But
Sorry,
I'm saying, would you,
I was halfway through a sentence. You asked a question, I was trying to answer it.
Go for it.
So we would have an edge velocity. So in the same comparison, you have 2 separate reference frames, Earth and the atmosphere. That's exactly the same as scaling up a merry-go-round. No different.
Anybody ready for a poem?
No. So if you increase the size of that merry-go-round, or we'll make it a bit more like Earth, because it's actually more like a waltzer, yeah? You scale up that your waltzer, believe me, the power of that waltzer will increase, as will the speed of the edge, the rim speed.
And we would see it with our atmosphere, because the gases in our atmosphere would invert. You would have the densest layer of atmosphere at the top of the atmosphere. You would have the lightest one on the inside. In other words, the crust that we stand on, that's where the lightest elements of the atmosphere would be. Yet we see none of that. We see it the opposite way around. Thus, then the question becomes, well, why is there not that evidence if we're supposed to have a rim velocity?
So sorry, who's talking
right
right
I'd
now?
love to disagree with you actually on that point.
Why would you want to disagree with that, Arwin?
Because that only works if there is an enclosure on the outside to make, well, basically to pressure against. Because otherwise the gas would simply vent off into and be sucked out into the outer space.
Well said, Arwin. So we're back to the beginning. Exactly, Arwin. So we're now back to the beginning, which is why I tried to tie you down on this point. So we have a closed system in your mind for these speeds and velocities to not be felt. We don't have that. We have an open system in the heliocentric bullshit world of sphere Earths next to vacuums.
Wait a minute, you said you're not allowed to swear in this channel. You've done it a hell of a lot.
Sorry, who the hell do you think you are?
A concerned citizen.
I don't give a shit. I will do whatever I will do as I damn well please on my show. Yeah?
Nice.
Well, all you have done is come here with your religious faith. Don't tell me how to produce my show.
I was pointing out you were telling you how to produce your show and you were doing it wrong.
Is this the best you've got? The best rebuttal for your religious belief in a radius of Earth?
I'm not religious in any way.
Yes, you are. You have a religious faith in an R value. I pointed this out immediately when you told us about how you automatically assumed where the radius of Earth had an equator. Yeah? You are a begging the question religious zealot who believes in R. You have no scientific evidence for anything you assert. You simply believe it because you have a religious faith. You don't realise you have a religious faith because you are indoctrinated. You have no scientific evidence for radius or gravity. Any of the things you have asserted here. None. Only faith. Only belief. You have a religion.
I agree.
Well, I have a probability that...
Don't give me this shit, right? I don't want to hear about your probability. You don't have scientific evidence. You have faith and belief. You don't have to like it. You are a religious zealot.
Okay, you can label me whatever you want.
Yeah, I can, and I am. You're a religious zealot with a belief and a faith in Earth radius and gravity, all unproven, all unscientific, no proof of any of it. Only faith, only belief, only a heliocentric religion.
So your religion's better then?
I don't have a religion. I don't believe anything. When I look at a building across the way, I just see it with my eyes. I don't need any faith that there's an earth curve blocking it and that it's actually a mirage. You, sir, are a fantasist, and you would look at that building and assert that it's blocked by earth curve and being bent 7/6 of the presumed radius back into my line of view because you have a religious faith in a radius we don't see, we cannot measure, and does not exist. That is because you are a religious zealot. I simply see things because they are there. Don't assert that I have any belief when I look at a building that I see. You believe there's a bulge in the way that we do not see, do not observe, cannot measure, and you only assume because you have a religious faith.
Point.
Tumbleweed. Tell me again that you don't have a religion. Tell me again that you're not a religious believer in this shit. Tell me that I shouldn't swear while I point out that your garbage is total garbage.
I think you should be more courteous because...
Why? You're a religious zealot, here to promote your belief. You're just punting your religion here. You're no better than a Jehovah's Witness. You've come to our door to preach your faith in your religion.
Perhaps, if I could make a suggestion, just try and find evidence for that 93 million mile sun.
No, it's not going to work out if you can't go in space and actually visit.
Well, yeah, no, the problem is the angular difference to which you could triangulate it is based on assuming that the Earth is either curved or flat. So
No shit.
Yeah, that's
the problem,
correct.
religious believer. You insert an R value.
have I not just stated that I would have to in order to calculate that?
Yeah, we know that, you absolute buffoon. We've been stating it for 6 months. You don't need to tell me that you have a religious faith in R, my friend. I know you're a religious believer and that you're here to punt your religion. I know it implicitly. That's why I get annoyed with you idiots. You don't even know you have a religion. Yet you tell me all about your faith and your belief and your assumptions in R. You are a religious zealot here to punt your religion. Another
If
tumbleweed
that's what you
moment.
want to believe, that's fine.
It's not a belief. I know you have no scientific evidence for any of this crap, and you only have belief. You have admitted it. It's not my belief that you believe this stuff. You admit it yourself. What part of this don't you get? Don't you understand that you have a religious belief? You think my belief in your religious belief is what you have? No, sir. You believe in everything you have told us. You cannot prove it scientifically. You have nothing but faith. That's it. You are only here to promote your faith in what you believe. That is a religion. You are a religious zealot.
Well, one of us definitely does sound like a preacher.
Yeah, you. Preaching about bloody R. Telling us about how you must assume it.
No, I'm saying in order to answer that question, I would have to assume it's
No,
flat.
you don't have to assume. What part of your religious cognition aren't you getting? I must assume the ball, it must be, it must be. Praise the ball, it must be. You don't need to assume it. Break your religion. Do I need to go and get a big fat R and say the power of R compels you while splashing you in water? Is that what I need to do to get your religion out of you? You don't need to assume it, sir. You've just been brainwashed. You think you need to tell me. You think you need to preach to me about how you need to assume it. You think you need to preach your faith here because you're a religious zealot. You think you must assume. You don't have to, sir. You can break through this religion. They've got you by the balls, but you can let go. You don't have to assume. You don't have to believe. You don't have to trust the words of men. You don't have to trust the mouths and lips of men who call themselves science. You don't have to do that. You do it because you're a religious zealot.
I know you've kept saying that. So for the sake of argument, my God, I'm a religious zealot. Let's just move on with.
Let's not bring God into it. Hell no. No, 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 no. You have a faith in a ball. You worship the sun, which you think you travel around because you're an idiot.
Nathan, can I just say that he's just called me Riley? He must be Alex, because how would he know my name?
Someone else called you Riley after you finished talking.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, is that not your name? Well, if that's, I would have called you by your handle, but I can't figure out who's talking and not.
Anthony Liley.
So they're recycling the shells then? Do you think this is Alex?
Oh my God, it's
I
not
do think
Alex.
it's Alex, yeah.
Wait, do you know what Alex looks like?
No idea. Most of these shills that they recycle and just give a different voice to with a little bit of voice changing, they tend to just come up and never actually show their face.
Paranoid, are you lot?
Paranoid?
Paranoia.
Yeah.
I know. I seen him in the pitch show about a month ago. You show yourself and you show Cat Earth, then they'll be right.
I know what Cat Earth looks like.
Anyway, yes, you're right.
Really matter,
I've got to be agreeing with Alan. Bastard. Yes, we're being very conspiratorial. Anyway, let's get back on track. You don't have any evidence for what you assert. You only have belief in it. That is religion, sir.
Did you just call me a bastard?
Yeah, because I had to agree with you. I had to agree with you, unfortunately, Alan. We're being
That's the
tards.
nicest thing you've said about him, isn't it?
Yeah, we are
So
being
wait a minute,
conspiratards, and while we
whoever
entertained it
asked
for a
me the
minute, it was
question-
fun. But yeah, let's just stop being conspiratards and saying this person's that person and blah blah blah. It's nonsense.
Yeah, but
they're all the same anyway. So.
whoever asked me the 92 million miles thing, I can answer honestly if you want. I don't know.
Good.
Very honest.
And
Yeah.
so,
But here's the thing. I could assert that for everything. I just do not know, because unless it's what I can perceive immediately in my reality, I'm a bit screwed. So the only tools that I've got to work with.
no, but what you can do is go and get the evidence that science tells you that's. I'm not asking you to work it out for yourself. I'm asking you to tell me where that 93 million mile sun comes from, because somebody somewhere must have measured it somehow using some method, process, or calculation.
Yeah.
So what I'm asking you to do is tell me what the science is for the 93 million mile sun. I'll give you a starting point. It starts generally, most people go to Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion.
Mhm.
It gives you from that, it gives you one astronomical unit, which doesn't really help us. It just tells us that somewhere along the line, somebody somewhere has put the number in. But I'm asking you, well, what is the evidence that you accept that the sun's 93 million miles? And if the answer right now is I don't know, then perhaps if you come back next time with the evidence that you now found to accept.
But I'm pretty sure that it will always be hearsay. It's not something that I can point to and go.
You could present an
Very
article.
bright of you.
You could present an article that you found somewhere from, just say, for example, nasa.gov.uk, in which it says that somebody somewhere did something and they found that it was 93 million miles. I'm not asking you to go measure it yourself. I'm just asking you why do you believe that it's true?
I will have a look at that. I will have a look at that.
So
You don't trust NASA?
No, I don't trust NASA. I don't trust many people.
Do you believe we went to the moon?
Do I believe it? If I define belief as beyond all shadow of doubt, then no.
No, we don't either.
I don't. You can't ask me to. And this is the thing about flat Earth arguments and things. It's incredibly easy to prove that NASA is a dishonest agency. But when you ask me why, when my highest probability is not to hide the fact that that space doesn't exist and we're on a flat Earth. It's more the case of why spend 50 million a day on something that you can fake for 100,000 a day that would have ordinarily cost you 50 million a day, and you could just pocket the money.
I like this guy.
That's a good question.
So the thing there is
That's the question we ask all the time.
Do I believe in that NASA is true? I can tell you, I 100% think NASA has done amazing things for us. And I 100% think NASA are an evil agency. But when I'm saying that, I'm talking about individuals making decisions within NASA. I wouldn't be talking to you now like this if NASA hadn't made some advancements in communications and things like that. But I don't, some of their photos and things I look at and I think, well, hang about, that's just blatantly
So you
wrong.
just said then you wouldn't be talking to us now if NASA hadn't made some advancements in communication. What advancements do you think that they've made in communication that allows you to speak to us now?
Satellites.
Well, they were part of the development for the transatlantic cabling. I don't think any of us are talking over satellites right now. Although yes.
Wow, you don't.
I thought you were going to.
Wow, you are awesome.
Wait a minute. Well, don't get me wrong. I've used satellite phones before, but
Right, how do you know that they were satellite phones? I know they've got a name, but how do you know that they were using satellites?
okay, for the highest probability that I could discern, there is an object redirecting my communication on a radio wavelength that is above me, and that's it. That's what I can discern.
How do you know it's an object that's above you?
Because I've done it in places where it's been really inhibited to get any signal into other than from the top, and there was no reflective medium for radio waves above.
No reflect. Are you sure there's no reflective medium up there?
Could it be a high altitude drone, a balloon, maybe?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It could. There is a probability that could be the case. I personally think the probability is that it's a satellite more, but I can't say that for certain, and I can absolutely say that would, a balloon. Google actually wanted to do a balloon network to spread the internet in internet deprived areas.
Google Loon, I think they've called it, right? Google Loon.
Yeah. A
You are
Satelloon.
aware that ham radio operators are able to bounce the signal off the ionosphere, right?
Yes.
What makes you think that you weren't bouncing a signal off the ionosphere and getting a signal from bounce? In other words, what I mean is you need a line of sight for a satellite, right?
Yes.
Yes. Did you have a line of sight?
Well, I can only assume it's too small.
There you go.
To be able
There's another assumption, right?
Well, I said it's high probability. I believe it to a high probability, but it's not something that I can say, hey, this is definite.
But there are two possibilities. You're either bouncing a signal off to and from a satellite that's orbiting space in a geosynchronous orbit that you can't see but believe is there, or you're bouncing it off the ionosphere like the ham radio operatives are, using a very low frequency radio wave, and you're just bouncing it off the atmosphere, but you think that you're bouncing it off a satellite that's in geosynchronous orbit. That's the two possibilities. 50-50, right? It's not 60 and 40 and 90. There's two possibilities. It's either one or the other. So you're at 50-50. So it's not probable.
Yeah. So the only way, So the only way for me to determine that there is satellites is to move to another satellite communication mechanism like GLONS and GPS and Galileo. So I used to work for.
Right, so Galileo, for example, how would you ascertain that you were establishing contact with Galileo satellite?
Satellite network. So you do it with timings. So you do it with request response timings.
Right, and they're measured in milliseconds.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know what the timing unit is, but 100,000th of a millisecond can be the military band if you get on it, I think.
So therefore, if milliseconds, therefore satellite. Is that correct?
Given triangulation, yes.
Is it not possible that if milliseconds, you're just getting bounced signal off the ionosphere?
No, because you would never get a position fix off one satellite. It's impossible. Well, I say it's impossible. It's incredibly improbable.
I agree. You can't. You need triangulation for 3 satellites to get the
yes, and that's done off timing.
But with regards to the communication of packet information using long frequency radio waves, is it not at least 50% likely or 50% possible that you're bouncing it off the ionosphere the same way that the ham radio operatives do with long wave radio?
Yeah, to interject,
it's possible.
What's the difference between if it is so fast bouncing up and forth to a satellite over that distance, then why wouldn't it be that fast just bouncing off this ionosphere?
Distance.
No, but it is the same distance basically.
No,
if it's bouncing off a satellite, that's also a very fast distance.
No. So imagine. So if you've got, let's say, 3 satellites to get a fix on, and let's just call it GPS, the Global Positioning System.
Sorry, why would we call it GPS? Why would we automatically beg the question and say we're on a sphere again?
I didn't.
You did. Global Positioning System. So we're on a globe, right? And we're doing all of our triangulation using spherical trig, right?
Oh, it should have been called UPS then, Universal Positioning System. But anyway, the issue there is not to get.
You seem to be not acknowledging my point, and you're acknowledging a minor point, which is the terminology of the word, and not the reason behind the word. So while we're talking about this subject, right, none of it proves sphere or flat. So this might be interesting conjecture, but it's not really at the heart of the topic here, because at the end of it, unless you're willing to say, well, yeah, we still assume that the GPS system's working on a sphere, it proves nothing either way, does it? This is just.
Oh no, I don't. When doing positioning software, you don't really account for sphere or not. It's kind of it's not really that relevant.
Really? Aren't they travelling around a sphere in your world?
Absolutely, but it's not relevant to the timings between satellites, and you don't rely on GPS for altitude. Put it that way.
So my point is that it doesn't prove anything in terms of flat or sphere.
No, it just proves satellites.
Right, but satellites could be anything, and it doesn't mean that they're travelling around a sphere Earth, right?
Oh, correct. Yes.
Right. So what's the point of this conversation?
Someone asked me the question. I think Riley asked me the. Riley asked me the question.
Arwen.
Yeah, I still didn't really get a response to my earlier statement, and that is, if that signal is going to the satellite and returning so quickly, in milliseconds or whatever it was, why couldn't that same distance be overbridged, just bouncing off the stratosphere or the ionosphere in equal speed?
Yep.
It's traveling a distance, right? So why should a satellite be there to make it that fast?
Yep, awesome. So it's a passive signal; it's not active. So it doesn't. You don't transmit anything to one of these satellites, and it gives you it back.
Bullshit.
It's a passive signal.
No, that's
passive signal, right?
Yeah.
That's not true. You transmit packet data with regards to your location, so that you can establish a communication with it. Packet data is sent and received by both parties 7 times on a 7-layer process. I can't remember what it's called now, but that's not true. You do transmit data to and from it.
You don't transmit data to the
ping
GPS
data.
satellites.
You do. You transmit ping data so it can locate you.
No, it doesn't locate you. There is nothing. The satellite knows nothing about you.
Really?
Not a thing. So you have 3 satellites that give off pulsing signals of certain timestamps, and based on the difference between those timestamps and the speed of the wavelength, you can work out your distance to that satellite, and you don't need any bidirectional communication to do that. You just read timestamps and say, well, packet or ping 1 was, like 0, and ping 2 was 0.1. Therefore, this is the distance because that radio wave. Now, obviously, atmospherics might play a part sometimes, which is why your GPS system goes off on a tangent sometimes, or even things that can.
Are you talking about GPS positioning, or are you talking about sat phones that you?
No. His question was about GPS positionings. Arwen's question.
Sorry, go on, carry on.
So Arwen, it's just passive. So these three satellites, which you probably need more for a fix, to be honest, because there is variance in them. These satellites gives off timing in the data that you passively listen to, and you can work out your distance to each. Thus, on the software, you can work out your position on a map because they are in geosynchronous orbit and fixed.
Right, so I don't know why they can't just use triangulating towers bouncing signals off the ionosphere.
Because I can get
the same purpose.
Because the problem with that is, you would have the ionosphere. You wouldn't be able to do the timing correctly for it.
It's not very reliable.
Why not?
Yeah. It's not a fixed medium, and B,
it's not
a fixed
medium. No. You're asking it to go through a further medium, so you get GPS interference from direct from satellite to receiver anyway.
Can't you just use signal enhancers to correct that? I thought radio technology has become pretty advanced by now. They have all these ways to amplify signals to
it's not about
get distortion out of there, so I don't see that as a problem, really.
Well, it's about dispersion and delay. If you're bouncing it, you'd have to. It depends where you're bouncing it from or how you'd bounce it. It just wouldn't be. You'd need line of sight to be accurate, really.
Really?
Yeah, because if you imagine as well, if you're in something like the Grand Canyon, any inverse angle of inflection off an ionosphere would have to be near enough above you if you're far enough down. But you'll still get a GPS signal down there. You won't get a phone signal, obviously, but you still get a GPS signal because in looking up at the angle to the atmosphere, you can get a signal from 3 or more. I think
That's a total misconception. Have you got any evidence that there's a GPS signal receivable by anything down there? And you can test this yourself. You can get
it's not even that hard. A GPS signal is a much simpler concept.
Yeah,
it's
and
not really a big package of data. It's just so it would be much easier to amplify that with minimal loss of content, basically, because it's not really transfer of information that much.
Yeah, the packet data is minuscule, so you can use it on a very small bandwidth, a long radio wave, and that will allow you to basically you can transmit that signal a long distance, and basically give the impression that you're getting a signal from space, but actually you're just getting it over using the LoRaN system of ground-based radar. I can't remember which one it is. It's been a while since we've had to talk about satellites, but what I'm saying is you need a line of sight for a satellite, but there are no lines of sight to any satellites. Now, if you look on the satellite map on Google to show where all the satellites are, you see the Earth in a sphere shape with like dots all the way around it. Yeah, we never, ever, ever see any of them transit the moon or the sun, ever, apart from the ISS.
None ever apart from.
Apart from the ISS, yes. We never, ever see lunar or solar transits or by any of the GPS things that are supposed to be up the satellites that are up there. But there's supposed to be thousands. We never see it.
But
Tens of thousands.
The moon. The moon.
There like 20, 30,000 satellites up there. Like
God knows. So why don't we ever see this line of sight that's required for a satellite communication?
You mean to be able to see a silhouette on the moon via?
Yeah, there should be lunar transits of satellites. Yes, we should see them.
I have never really looked into trying to see silhouettes of the moon.
And if you're going to argue that the 1 revolution per day of the Earth is a thing against the idea of gravity, because it's so small, the rim velocity so low, etc., centrifugal force, etc., it then works in our favor when it comes to locating these satellites with a line of sight, because the transit of the moon would be 1 revolution per day. It'd be really small. We should be able to see it regularly, every night, every day, even.
Are they not synchronized with the orbit, Tony, by any chance?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're synchronized with the orbit of the Earth.
Have you ever looked through a big telescope?
Yeah. So if the Earth's only spinning by 1 revolution per day, the rate that it transits the moon would be nice and slow, so we should be able to see it very easily. And the only thing that we ever see transiting the moon is a plane in the sky, or the ISS, apparently, every now and again when they tell us to look in a certain place at a certain time.
Good point.
Yes, it's an interesting point.
So my point is that the line of sight doesn't appear to be there. And just because you receive a signal doesn't mean that there is a satellite there. It just means that you're receiving a signal.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'll concede that, 100%. Like I said, the highest probability from my point of view is that there are satellites up there doing this.
You said before that you were looking into FE Core. You were discussing with FE Core. Are you aware of their most recent project with the microwave transmission?
The Wi-Fi transmitter, yes.
What's your views on that? Do you think, regardless of the results,
I've actually seen the first test results as well, to be honest.
Hey, Riley, on that note, by the way, with the geosynchronous satellites, if they are actually geosynchronous and basically holding its relative position on the Earth, then every single night that the moon passes by, they should all be visible in that same location, obstructing the moon every single time.
I've just had a look on YouTube. There's 38,000 videos of it.
38,000 videos of what, Alan?
Satellite moon transits.
Really? Can you provide a link in the side chat and we'll present it and see if it's credible?
Just do a search, Tony. Satellite moon transit.
You're making the claim. Provide the link. Copy and paste it.
Don't do it. You do it, naughty boy.
Come on. I'm screen sharing now. I'm waiting for your link. Let's see
Satellite moon transit.
Just copy and paste the link that you're referring to so I don't get it wrong.
God dear. Lazy flat.
Nathan, would you mind? Oh, did you just call me fat? Yeah, you don't know what I look like. Really?
What?
You just called me fat.
You asked for my recipes for pies.
It means he's hungry.
Is there any need for
like
any complimentary ad-homs like that?
Yeah,
Right,
it's
anyway,
thought
do
you
you want to
looked
play
like
it?
it.
You're
Slow
welcome to look at
blood
it in the
Alan.
Hangout. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I probably won't present it. This isn't as. It's not mine, not yours. So welcome
Yeah,
to
she
click.
gets copyright strike.
Maybe. Well, maybe not.
Right.
I don't expect to, but I don't want to risk it. But click on the Hangout if you want to see it. Click on Anthony's page
38,000.
now.
So satellites transiting the sun and the moon.
Yeah, quite
Now-
a few from none then.
Right, now, before we play this, I remind myself of Brenda's reason for deleting Crow 777's 700 files worth of research on whatever it was he was researching. And the justification she gave was because they were bats. Before watching this video, if I assert that it's a bat passing the lens of the camera before we see it, would you be able to prove that it's a satellite?
Oh, Jesus, you're impossible.
I know.
It's just, how do you have a conversation?
Well, I'm gonna say that this is a bat crossing the lens.
I'm going to say it's a dragon in the distance.
Cool.
Well,
Could
let's
be
just
anything,
see
couldn't
what
it?
we see.
So the
I'm going to
question
say
is,
it's Albert Tatlock on a broomstick.
we can call it
What
all
is
sorts,
this? Is
but
this supposed to be the moon?
hold on.
think-
Let's just get back on track. So
That's the sun, Arwen.
we can call it
Really?
anything we
Is
like,
that what it
but
looks like?
can we prove that it's actually a satellite? That's the question in hand.
And my point would be that this would have to be very close to us to be able to see it because of angular size resolution.
This is
Oh, was that it then?
ridiculous. This is not the sun.
I've never seen the sun looking like that. But
Yeah,
So
that
this-
is-
this-
that is the-
so you're talking about
Ridiculous.
this vertical movement of this thing, right? As a satellite, yeah?
Yep.
Can you prove it's a satellite? Because it
Can you
looks like a
prove it's
bat.
not?
Wow.
Looks like a bat to me.
Wow, a dot.
Sorry,
on,
but
guys.
this
Sorry
is
to
not the
interrupt. I've
sun.
just
The
had
smudge.
That's
had-
the sun.
sorry to
No, it's
interrupt.
not.
Hey, Ranty, have a look at that. It's actually in focus.
It's
That's
a
what-
smudge.
In focus.
It's a smudge, Alan. You're right.
It's a smudge.
Oh, come on.
It's
You're not
not
going to
the
really.
sun. This is ridiculous.
You're not really going to claim this
Really
is the sun, are you, Alan?
Yes.
Just had a message from Brenda, and she says she thinks it's a bat too.
Yeah, Brenda thinks it's a bat. So be careful because Brenda might delete it off YouTube if she sees it.
What are you attacking Brenda for?
Because she deleted a load of evidence based on it being a bat. Now I'm going to use that argument to suggest that it perhaps might not be a satellite. It's just a bat.
Stupid arguments you have.
Well, it's
That's
Brenda's
my
argument. I mean, that's Brenda's
Oh,
argument. You can
just
level that with
presented a
Brenda.
dot.
It's Brenda's argument. So you think Brenda's stupid, do you, Alan?
Anyway, do you fancy a poem? It's called.
Sorry,
I
would that be
swear.
a yes? Do you think
That's
Brenda's
your point, it's
argument
called
is
Nathan.
stupid? Do you think Brenda's argument's stupid then? Her reasoning behind deleting all those videos was that it was bats traversing the moon. Do you think that's a stupid argument?
Do you want to hear a poem? It's called Nathan.
No, I want an answer. Why?
I wouldn't answer.
What's the
I want
question?
to hear an answer.
Do you feel it's a stupid argument to remove over 170 videos from a shared Google Drive because she claimed that they were bats traversing the moon?
Is that what she really did?
Yep, that's exactly what she did.
It's a blurry dot.
What the hell?
So what's the answer, Alan?
What's the question?
I'll repeat it again. So, is it a decent argument to say that I will delete over 170 files from a Google shared drive because the contents is bats traversing the moon? Is that a good
Well-
argument?
My position on that, Nathan, is simply this. I wouldn't delete anybody else's work.
Well, that's
Fair
a
enough.
decent position to take. But what about a reason for doing it?
Sounds flimsy at the least.
Flimsy. It's downright preposterous.
Yeah, nobody has the right to delete anybody else's work.
And let's just put it out there. Remind folk that she didn't even have permission to use the link that she was given. She found it in some old thread somewhere. She went onto it, and without any permission whatsoever, it wasn't intended for her. She knew it wasn't intended for her, but she did it anyway.
I think she did it to wind you lot up.
Well, it's
I don't
pretty
think so.
grimy either way.
We
Anyway.
know her motivation, Alan. We've just told you twice. She said she deleted them because it was just bats flying in front of the moon.
But let's look at this 38,000 satellites traversing the sun and moon.
Where?
Where?
I gave you the link. Riley's got it.
Yeah, it got played.
Let's watch them all together.
All of them? What? The one you sent wasn't good enough?
I sent 38,000.
Yeah, that's
38,000.
38,000 bats.
Crawly insects in the night.
Not really. I mean, if you guys are really interested in the truth and you just dismiss things like that,
No, but you're claiming that that's a satellite, right? Prove
can
it.
you really call yourself the truth seeker?
Prove that it's a
Alan,
satellite.
come
You're
on, man.
claiming it's a
Satellite,
satellite.
Alan.
Alan, you're always going off on ranty about his pictures are out of focus, everything. You guys always have
Yes,
a
but that's an
complaint about
in-joke
something. You
between me
complain
and
about
Ranty.
DITRH because he doesn't have the right solar filter or whatever the hell.
Well, he
But
doesn't.
then
There's
you
another
want
difference
to
between an
present,
ND filter and a
but as proof of a satellite, you want to present a dot going across what's supposed to be the moon.
It's
I
a
mean,
long
come
way
on,
away.
man.
It's a
It's a
bat.
dot.
No, it's not. You just made that
It
up.
doesn't even look like a bat. It looks like a
You
dot.
call yourself
How are
truth
we
seeker?
supposed to know that that's a
Can't you see it's a
satellite?
bat? It's
Shut up,
clearly a bat.
shut up, you morons.
Smudge.
Listen,
It's just a smudge.
Riley said something and you've all copied him.
What do you mean?
You've looked
What
for
the
no
hell are you
evidence.
talking
You're the
about?
one
no
that's claiming
research.
that. You're the
All
one that's
you've
claiming
done,
that a
shut
smudge.
up, shut up, shut up. All you've done is repeat what Anthony said. You're not truth seekers at all.
I didn't say it was a
What are you
bat.
talking about? We
Looked
fall out
more
with
like a
Anthony all the
bug flying
time. We disagree
across
with
the
Anthony
camera.
quite frequently. What the hell are you talking
No
about?
research. Anyway, do you want to hear a poem? Let's
No,
end on a good note.
No, not really.
Come on, it's called
Who
Nathan.
wants to hear your poem?
No thanks.
Oh, me and my friend John wrote this.
Oh
It's
well.
quite good.
I mean, that was your big evidence for satellites.
Yeah, that was
video?
it. A smudge.
38,000 videos. What have you got
Of
against it?
smudges.
You just repeated.
I can make out a building in Ranty's
Right.
pictures. That's just a smudge.
No, it's
Would
not.
have been a bug flying just across the camera.
Even Jeranism agreed that it was the ISS.
Sorry, we didn't ask for the ISS. We already
we're not
conceded.
talking about-
That was conceded.
we're
You
not
can see the
talking
ISS.
about
So
You
we
just-
were asking for
Yeah,
satellites.
You're not interested in the truth. None of you. This is just
Yeah,
entertainment.
okay.
Can
Well,
I?
you can tell yourself that if you like, Alan. I mean, I just see that as an outrage when you have religious zealots coming here day after day asserting their religious beliefs onto us.
You sound like Jim Jones.
Oh, okay. You have a
You're gonna
religious belief, Alan. You have a religious belief in a sphere Earth. You think that is fine to assert on people, but it's not. I don't think that's fine at all. When people say okay, and I point out that they've got a religious faith, I'd say no, it's not okay. It's not in the slightest bit acceptable.
You know that's called religious persecution, right? And we killed that a long time ago, right?
But you don't think it's a religion, though, do you?
Sorry?
You don't think it's a religion, though,
I
do
thought,
you?
I thought I said okay enough times that you would have realised it's being sincere.
Oh, right.
We're
So you're
being
happy
under
to accept
attack.
that it's a religious belief, then?
If religion is the practice of a belief that is dominant with presupposition, then I would have to say yes. But anyway, I've got an interesting question though. And this is an honest, interesting question. Of everybody that believes the Earth is flat, first of all, do you know? It's an assumption that everybody believes that, but I'm asking, what would be the proof that you would require to move away from that belief to a heliocentric, planet model?
Models are pseudoscience. We don't live on models. What are you talking about?
Okay, what proof do you require, Nathan?
Of what? You just said, what do I need to prove a model? Models are just pseudoscience. I don't live on a model.
I could answer him.
Oh, hold on, yes.
What you need is a complete, absolute lack of long, distant observations at minimal observer height. You would need them to never, ever be in existence. And you don't, because we do have long distance observations at minimal observer height.
I think
That's
the
what you would
question
need.
goes, to be fair, I think the question goes back to you more than it comes to us.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah, no, and I would answer it if anybody asked me.
What's the evidence that you accept that we live on a sphere?
Oh no, wait a minute. Now you're asking the inverse.
Well, you're asking me, and I think the question is more valid back to yourself when you.
No, I asked you to, what would be the evidence to change your belief?
Evidence of R would be a good start. Evidence of gravity would be another good start. Evidence of rotation of the Earth would be another good start. Any of them three, I'm pretty much there.
Curvature would be nice.
For me, it would be observable. There is no observable curve. If you show me an observable curve, then I would change my opinion.
Okay.
Proof of the molten iron core.
And
Proof
water.
of a pressurized system living next to the vacuum of space without a membrane.
Water sticking to the outside of a ball. That would be nice.
So we've given you like 6 there.
Yeah, but 2 of them are a little bit. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around actually.
Which 2 of them?
Which
It's a bit of a gish gallop argument by us to give you 6, isn't it?
Which 2 are you having a hard time getting your head around?
So the molten core for one thing, because
Right. So the Curie temperature of iron is about 768 degrees roughly. So when the Curie temperature is met of iron, then it can no longer hold a permanent magnetic state, and it can only be replaced with an induced magnetic field, which requires an external source of some kind. So if it loses its magnetism, and the core is supposed to be about 10,000 degrees Celsius, or might even be 20, the Curie temperature is long since exceeded. So where's the magnetic field coming from? And the argument is it's the dynamo effect. The rotation of the Earth causes an inertia inside.
But these are all very low probability theories. Well, they're not. They're
No,
not.
it's black and white. What do you
They're
mean?
not,
low?
they're not scientific fact, are
It's
they?
absolutely 100% scientifically fact. The Curie temperature of iron is only 700 degrees. The claim of the core is...
Oh, no, I know that. I meant...
Yeah, can you let him finish his point now? You wanted to understand it, so
Okay.
he's giving it to you in black and white, so just hear him out.
When the Curie temperature is met, iron can no longer hold its permanent magnetic state. It loses its magnetism. And the only way it can have magnetic state is if it's induced from a third party, like some other external source. And it actually states in the definition it must be an external source. In other words, it has to come from somewhere. Now, it doesn't actually come from anywhere on the heliocentric model, so it can't do that. The only other way it can do it is to self-perpetuate itself. And the claim is that the dynamo effect is the proof or the source for the magnetic field, in that molten iron, when it's moving under its own centrifugal forces, internal and convection currents that power it, creates a magnetic force. However, no evidence exists to prove that point is true. They can do it with sodium, but they cannot do it with iron. Now, the other main element in the Earth's crust is nickel, but nickel doesn't even have a Curie temperature. It's not got a magnetic state. They say that it's got some magnetic proponents to it, but it doesn't have a Curie temperature. It's not applicable. So the problem becomes, well, where does the magnetism come from? And my claim is, or my position is, that unless you can prove that there is a magnetic state to the Earth caused by iron being beyond its Curie temperature, then you can't claim that it's a molten core.
No, yeah. No, I understand that, but that's not something within my comprehension of being able to prove or disprove. I actually thought that, I wouldn't have thought that the scientific, not that I've looked into it, but I wouldn't have thought that the scientific community would have asserted that we have an absolute molten iron core under these temperatures.
You've never seen the diagram of the layers of the Earth?
Oh, I have, but
and
they are all based on probability and assumption than any kind of fact, because we know very little about what's underneath the ground, don't we? I mean,
right. So why is it taught to kids in
you
school
don't have to tell
as
them.
fact?
I don't know that. To me, it should be presented as a theory only to kids. A
Right.
lot of things should.
Sure, but most of what you believe and have faith in, your religion, is taught as fact.
Oh yeah, I absolutely disagree with that. But scientific fact is not fact, 100% fact. It's highest probability, isn't it?
Well,
What?
no, you have scientific
What?
advancement. By
That's pseudoscience. then.
No, science can't claim absolutes.
Does
Isn't
it have
that
to be a pseudoscience then? It's pseudoscience.
Well, everything is, yeah.
Yeah.
No, scientific method is science. It establishes a cause and effect.
Yes, but what I'm saying is science doesn't deal with absolutes. It deals with either degrees of probability, isn't it?
No, it deals with cause and effect. Yeah? It's hypothesis driven, prediction driven, scientific prediction driven.
Which leads you to believe that either something
No, it doesn't lead you to believe. It validates your hypothesis through systematic experimentation. Earlier, you explained that you didn't understand this, and I had to go through it in baby steps. Why are you asserting this?
I started with a question. If you rewind it back, I said, doesn't science never make any assertions to 100%? Doesn't it say that things are just degrees of probability?
Well, one thing it does say is that we live in a spinning ball, right?
Yeah, there's no probability about that. That's fact.
It's considered a scientific fact, and that we know that because they tell us that on the transantarctic flight, nobody will be allowed to take any scientific instrumentation on there for the purposes of conducting any testing of, quote, scientific fact. So the one fact that science does tell us is that we live on a spinning ball. Is that not correct?
I personally have not looked at science making that statement, but I would assume it to be true, yeah.
Oh, right. So is it another
Well,
assumption? So you
Well,
don't
not
actually
taught
think
that
that
in
science
school?
asserts we live on a spinning ball?
Oh, no,
Come on, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Cox.
well, yeah.
You weren't taught that in school that we live on a planet?
I don't know. It was a long time ago. I forget now, and I wasn't interested in
Come
learning.
on, man.
So you're actually reluctant to say that science teaches us that we live on a spinning ball.
Oh, no. I've already said they do. You know, the curriculums do actually state that.
But you also said that science doesn't tell us any like hard, fast facts, right? They don't assert anything is true.
They assert things as scientific fact. My question was, but isn't a scientific fact the most likely, highest probability theory beyond reasonable evidence?
No, you go through something called systematic experimentation to prove your hypothesis valid or invalid. That is
Yeah,
how
but
you
valid
establish something.
doesn't mean 100% true, does it?
Yeah, it means valid.
If you can prove a cause and effect relationship, it means that you've established the scientific method, or you've used the scientific method and established something called a scientific fact, like water will boil at a certain point, right?
Yes.
So unless you're gonna like try and dilute the importance of the scientific method with regards to establishing scientific facts, then I would reject what you just said as truth, because science does prove things.
Yeah, but I never understood science to deal with absolutes, and I've watched a few scientific religious debates before, and one of the things that the prominent scientist debater always says is there's no absolutes in science. There is only highest probability. So it's like me saying to you, I can't prove that I'm not a brain in a vat right now, or I can't prove that God doesn't exist, or I can, me simply asserting that water boils at X degrees changes based on the pressure of the surrounding area as well. So there's only, as far as I understand it, and as far as I kind of accept it and go along, is there's nothing's an absolute. Everything's just a probability.
No, that's philosophical. That's not science.
Correct.
I will, given my own possible misconceptions, I will look more into what scientific fact actually means.
You do that. And by the way, about the water boiling at 100 degrees, that is basically the standard for the standard atmosphere. And indeed, the pressure is lower or higher, or if there are solutions within the water, then yeah, that boiling point will change with different temperatures, but that's also been very clearly defined. So it is very constant. It is an absolute. It always works out in the exact same manner. So it's just wrong.
If science isn't setting out to prove things and only prove things as a high probability, why do they do it?
Because from those probabilities you can build predictions that can help us.
Well, I've already explained what a prediction in science is. It's called a hypothesis.
Okay,
it's a very special.
Helps us build hypothesis then.
Right. No, that's part of the scientific method that you're trying to invalidate by saying it's only based on probability.
I'm saying I've heard a lot of scientists say that there are no absolutes. There is only high degrees of probability.
All right. What kind of scientists were they? Were they applying the scientific method while they did that? Science is very narrow. It's the application of a method called the scientific method. That method is prediction-based, it is hypothesis-based, and it establishes a cause and effect relationship. That is what science is. You're saying, no, it doesn't do that. It just establishes a high probability. Well, no, you have a hypothesis, yeah? You also have an alternate hypothesis. So you have a null and an alternate, yeah? And you're trying to validate or invalidate your hypothesis. That's the purpose. You do this through systematic experimentation.
Yeah, but has not science changed its mind on a number of things?
Sorry, once you establish a cause and effect with an independent and a dependent variable, you have established what is the cause of the effect. That's the point of doing it.
So, Mr. Dean, do you believe then science is an extrapolation based on a possibility?
Me personally, yes, I would never assume that whatever scientists say,
Sorry,
I would never take something as fact.
we're talking about two different things. You're talking about what scientists say. We are talking about science.
Yes, and I assumed that science was about probabilities more than absolutes, because I don't get how you can claim absolutes in certain areas that have too many input variables. That would be like saying everything would need to be comprehensible and simplistic, which is the aim of it, but some things just aren't, and they're unexplained. But you still have to build predictions off them to be able to use them.
You are wrong, right? There is, I'll say it for the third time, there is a very special kind of prediction. It is called a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a scientific prediction. The prediction has an assumption in it, a presumption of a cause, isolated. So you can cause an effect on a dependent variable, your observed phenomena. This method establishes the cause of an effect.
And you're saying that's always an absolute if that is the case.
It is established through systematic experimentation.
I know how it's established. I'm saying, are you saying that is that the results of that, if proven, are an absolute beyond any doubt whatsoever?
You have established the cause of your effect. That is the purpose of science, to establish cause and effect relationships. That's the point.
So, yes, then. Is that the answer to my question that I just asked? Anyway, the other point then that I had a problem with was, or that I had questions about. I can't actually remember now what the evidence was for it.
What do you think of the idea of buildings being able to be loomed up over hills or the curvature of the earth? In your model, do you think that's possible to see entire towns loomed up?
Yeah, yeah. Because one of the first things that I did is I got one of the images that says, you know, you shouldn't be able to see this, and I modelled the Earth at the diameter that it is supposed to be. And I planted buildings, you know, 11 kilometers away, put myself at head height and had a look, and it matched perfectly with the photo.
No, I mean, let's suppose in that the photograph 18 miles away, and that town shouldn't be seen at all across the water. You shouldn't see it at all on any model of the flat Earth. The ball Earth, and yet you're seeing down to ground level. Do you believe that entire town has been loomed up?
Well, through refraction or Fresnel effect or something like that.
Through refraction, the entire town, not just a stray beam of light, but you know, millions and millions of different light particles all lifting themselves up at the same rate in the same proportion to show you the entire town, just as you would see it if you was in the town itself. Do you think that's possible?
Dean, you still there?
Hello.
Here.
Hello?
Just let it be
Is he there?
silent. It's
I
fine.
think he's
Let it be silent.
gone, hasn't he?
No,
No,
still
I
there.
think he's gone. I don't see him.
Dean, yeah, Dean's not there anymore.
Oh, really?
Dean left the group chat.
Oh, right. That's interesting.
Oh, well. We were just about to get somewhere.
Maybe.
Because in his model that he made, this 11-kilometer distance, it matched the photograph. Well, let's see him try and match a photograph that doesn't match the model.
Hello?
Hello, Dean.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Sorry, it just went, video session ended. I didn't know whether you kicked me or whether...
No, just a glitch, I think.
Okay.
So, did you hear my question?
I did not, I'm really sorry.
Oh, right, okay.
The windows...
So if you saw a town, if you was looking across an ocean and you was looking at...
Oh, sorry, that question, yes. I did start... you're on about the Fresnel effect or the refraction or the way that light can distort through a...
yeah, I'm not talking about being distorted. I'm talking about you being able to see the town as if you was actually inside the town. Literally, everything loomed up at the same rate, same proportions, houses, windows, everything you could think of, all there, right? Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't be there. So in your model, that has to be loomed up. Do you not think that's slightly ridiculous?
I don't think it's ridiculous. I think it's an observed phenomenon that requires investigation. I'm not someone that says, "Haha, that proves flat Earth," or "No, that's wrong." It's interesting to me. Like I say, that the experiments that FE Core are doing with that they have done with lasers and now doing with the Wi-Fi, which is going to be across 45 kilometers at the Straits of Dover from the Netherlands, is going to be interesting.
So you think that's something?
Sorry,
that's
140.
possible?
Sorry, I said that wrong. 145. They've already done a 40-kilometer lake test.
Right. So your answer is that you know it's an observed phenomena.
Yeah.
But you don't know whether it conforms to the flat model or the ball model.
Yeah, it's not that it's hard for me to accept a conclusion based off either. It's just that I'd need additional steps to be able to figure out. So.
Okay, well, if I ask you another question, if you was on one side of a hill and someone else was on the other side of the hill, how long would you keep looking at that hill, expecting to see them loomed up?
The hill, I wouldn't.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Right.
But this is what in your model, this looming effect would have to happen.
Yeah, but I mean,
stare at the hill and stare at the hill, and then eventually you would see your friend loomed up. On the right day, weather conditions, he would be loomed up over the hill, just like the buildings are in this scenario. This town that's 18 miles away that shouldn't be there, it is being loomed up just like that same scenario.
Yeah, I've never, to be honest, I have looked at this, and like I said, I've replicated them in 3D. I've never seen an image where I've thought, this is entirely impossible, so this must prove that the ground is flat. I've always seen slight distortions that lead me to believe that there is a possibility of atmospheric interference with the light rays. Now, don't get me wrong, that interference I'm a little bit confused as being uniform, if that's your question, but it doesn't automatically take me to this is flat Earth.
Sorry, why would you say that?
I mean,
so hold on just one second. So you see a building that is there, you can see it. Yeah? Why would you say that that's an observed phenomena?
Why would I say it's an observed phenomena? Because
it's just a building. That's a concrete noun. I see something. That's a concrete noun, sir. That's not an observed phenomena. Why would you assert such nonsense?
Whatever.
What do you mean, whatever? You just said you observe a phenomena. Yeah. I'm asking what phenomena. Now, I already know that you are saying we are seeing something that shouldn't be there. But it only shouldn't be there because mathematics say it shouldn't be there. Therefore, you label it an observed phenomena. I just see a building. It's just a concrete noun. I see a building. There's a building. Yeah. Right? So why are you labeling it as a phenomena? Because it shouldn't be there. Are you suggesting that these buildings aren't actually there?
No, I'm suggesting that the images that I've looked at show considerable distortion at the lower levels.
And did you model that distortion?
Sorry, say again.
Did you model that distortion?
Did I model it?
Are you deaf?
No, I didn't model it.
Well, that makes your model completely invalid then.
I'm not saying.
Don't mutter. That makes your model invalid.
Okay.
Not okay. You didn't model the effect. You said you'd modelled refraction. Did you not?
No.
You didn't model refraction. You didn't apply 76R to these buildings that shouldn't be there because they're blocked by Earth curve. You said you modelled this.
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't model refraction. I modelled the Earth. Yes, now I'm following you. Yes, I've modelled the curvature of the Earth to scale and put buildings on there. Yes, correct.
And you couldn't see them because the Earth was in the way, according to the model, correct?
I couldn't see the base of them, but I could see the tops and things. Yes, correct.
Right. What about the ones where we can see the base? Ranty's pictures we're talking about, where he sees beach to beach.
Yes. Now, like I said to you before, that to me is interesting. That's what that is. It's incredibly interesting.
Why? It's just a building. Why on earth would you assert that it's interesting? It's just a building. Why would that be interesting?
Because given the supposition of my religious belief of a globe, it's interesting.
Why?
Because I'd have to look into it to try and explain it to have an
look into what? It's just a building. I'm not following you. What's interesting? What would you have to look into? You just see a building. What's so interesting?
The distortion or the effects that can happen at acute angles to either water or surfaces with differential heat.
What's that got to do with anything to do with sphere Earth? Why would this be interesting to you?
It's called Fresnel, diffusion, diffraction, and absorption coefficients and scatter coefficients.
No, it's not. It's a 7.6R begging the question fallacy. That's what refraction is in your model. Why are you talking about these crazy effects of actual refraction which you can't model?
No, I can actually model Fresnel light on surfaces, and
you've modelled that, and you have modelled that in reference to these images.
No, not yet.
Sorry, so why the hell would you tell me you can model it?
Because I'm capable
of modelling it in reference to the pictures we are discussing.
To look at what conclusions that were, to look at the result of what that might.
Sorry, have you modelled these images with the demonstrated refraction as part of the model?
Not yet, no.
So that would be a no. You have not modelled refraction.
No, I said I could.
Oh, right.
And Fresnel effect of optics along a surface.
So you can model the refraction we see in these images along the full length, left to right, when we have this distortion. You can model something with an inferior mirage below it being loomed up from beyond a wall of water that blocks our view and has an angular size bigger than the thing in the distance. You can model that refraction to sit perfectly on the horizon of a sphere Earth. I expect to see that.
I didn't. That isn't my claim. My claim is I can.
Sorry,
simulate.
we see refraction in the images. I'm asking if you can model it. It's very straightforward. I also want to know why this image is interesting. It's just a building.
Are we actually looking at an image now, or just?
We're talking about Ranty's observations that you claim to have modelled.
Oh, wait a minute.
Sorry, have you not modelled them? Was that a lie?
I said I've modelled the Earth.
Right,
sorry, who gives a crap? So you're telling me that you're capable of begging the question? Wow, we're talking about specific images. Ranty was very detailed about his observation.
Okay, cool. Yes, now I'm looking at it. Yes.
Okay, so you can model this. That's great, because there's two things here that you need to think about on how to work it out on your model. Mm-hmm. The first being that none of these buildings should be seen from an elevation of 1 foot and 18 miles, right?
So that's 18 miles.
Yes.
Okay.
And the second one is, so these are all loomed up in your model, right? So it's loomed up, but also then we have the refraction layer, which is evident and runs through the image, but it runs through the image where my cursor is right now. It doesn't run through the bottom of the image like you said. You said the issues that you see right above the water. On this particular day, it appeared to me that I got underneath the actual refraction layer. And this is why we're able to see shore to shore. And the refraction layer starts here where my cursor is, where you can see 4 windows. There is only actually 2 windows on this building. It's squared off this building, which is normally rounded. However, we are seeing shore to shore, and that is evidenced when we come over to this right-hand side, We've got things like a medical building that's here. We've got the Barrow Town Hall. We've also got a rock that sits in the water, that's actually showing up in front of this building. So this is a shore-to-shore observation that's loomed up in your model and has a refraction layer that is above the actual ground zero or parallel part here at the bottom. It is actually here where my cursor is. So if you can model that, I would appreciate it, because you have two phenomena there to work with.
Yeah, so Frenzel effect deals with the
it only deals with it on a plane. We can model this.
It actually does deal with it on any object, any surface that you want, because it's about the path that a photon takes inside. So forgetting the fact that this is the atmosphere for 2 seconds, Frenzel effect on car paint, for instance, you would put, like, I don't know, metal red flaky paint down, and then you would cover it with a layer of lacquer. And the more that you make that layer of lacquer, the more Frenzel effect you make on harsh angles, whereby you could hide a light behind the car, but you'll be able to see the light actually on the rims of the car, because what it's actually doing is it's penetrating that layer of matter and bouncing around, which is a scatter coefficient based.
I don't think you understand the problem with this.
Sorry, bear with me a second, Renty.
Oh no, I do understand the problem with this.
The problem is that this is a hologram in your model. This is a hologram. This isn't really there. That's a hologram. So you've got a hologram that is now being miraged on itself.
Do you know the heights of any of those buildings, or one that's actually a square or something?
Well, these buildings here, these buildings here, they're the Devonshire Dock Hall. They are 18 miles away, and the height of them is 167 feet.
167. Crap.
To the top.
What's that in meters? I'm afraid.
50 meters, 52 meters, something like that.
Give me 2 seconds.
It's looming.
And Rancy, just to make sure
50.9.
these buildings are supposed to be completely gone.
Sorry, 50.9 meters.
50.9.
There you go.
So
elevation 1 foot.
These buildings should be completely gone.
One.
Yes.
We're back to this. We've got buildings, we just see them. There they are. Yeah, they've got a bit of refraction applied. What you have detailed in terms of the Fresnel effect is in no way, shape or form ever applied to the refraction calculations made when referencing a sphere Earth. You have a... Go on.
It also defies the trajectory of light according to Fermat's principle. Light travels in straight lines. It doesn't travel through a Fresnel zone.
Right, so wait a minute. And how far away was this in kilometers, those buildings, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know. It's 18 miles.
Oh, 18 miles. Jesus, I can't do. Wait a minute.
28.97.
Sorry?
28.97 if it's exactly 18 miles. Kilometers, that is. Right, why are we doing this exactly?
Yes, I am just about to have a look at that.
You're playing with the curve calculator?
No.
Well, you know, if you really want to, you could focus on this land that's visible to the left of it here, which is only 30 feet tall. Perhaps you could put that in your model as well. 30 feet tall, just across here.
You being an airplane pilot, I would think it would be pretty dangerous for buildings that weren't there to just start appearing like they're there.
Yeah.
Dean, you said you got.
That would make.
You got an air model.
Air travel very dangerous.
Sorry, I just feel like we're kind of getting a bit vague here. We've just rattled off some numbers to you. What was the point in all that exactly?
Oh, I'm just inputting it into a scale model at the moment.
All right.
Just for for me, basically. Not.
I encourage you to look at Ranty's videos, model or some of those observations, and come back to the next show and show what shows in your Earth size model.
So you'll be modelling this refraction then?
Give me a second.
Yeah, so you need to put the refraction in the middle of the image, and then you need to put...
Well, wait a minute. Everybody stop telling me what I need to do at the moment. I'm just getting the relative distances and things correct.
Okay. Well, that's just to the tallest building. I mean, these
I'm sorry, I'm going
down
off
here.
So I'm going off the building that you said was...
This one in the middle.
Yeah, 50 meters, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was meters, right? Not feet.
50 meters, yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough.
That's just to this building. But you could also take this one here, which is about 25
wait a minute, I'm
meters.
not looking. Wait a minute, let me have a look.
So these jaggedy rooftops here are 25 meters tall.
I'll just take the 50-meter ones at the moment.
I'm sure you would.
Well, okay. Wait a minute, I'll put one at the side then. So what are they? Sorry. They're
You've got
20 meters.
25 meters. Yeah, you've also got a sandbank that you could use if you want that's perhaps only 30 feet tall.
Yeah, I'm having to see on the perception of a globe Earth what needs to happen for me to be able to see this crap.
Okay.
Whereas it's fine looking at a photo, but I'm looking at a two-dimensional photo across a distance that is really hard to conceive, across a curvature which I already know is, or I already assume is infinitesimally small. I need to be able to... I need to be able to freeze this in time and go backwards and forwards and look around. And the only way that I can do that, or the easiest way for me, is just model it with the perceived arc of the Earth and put in the actual size of the objects and things. So one is 50, one is 25, let's say. Let's go to the perspective view and settle this down properly. I think I'm still sharing my screen as well, so
okay.
you actually see what I'm doing anyway.
Right. I'll knock mine off then.
Right, so I have got...
I've just got a black screen from you, actually.
Oh, crap.
Has anybody else got his screen? Because I had
Oh, no, sorry. It cut out, didn't it? I was sharing my screen. Give me 2 seconds.
You got a donation, Nath?
Yeah, shout out to Mixlix. Much obliged.
Right, can people... Or can you see my screen?
Yes, we see now. Yes, that's great.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so this is 25 meters high. This is 50 meters high, basically. So this is what I'm seeing, and this is the Earth measured, to scale, which is a bit awesome. If I go to person 2, which is 2 meters high, and let's have a look through the camera then, and then I'll see what I need to be able to do to have a look at. This. Interesting. That is incredibly interesting to me. Because what we're looking at there, if you can see it, that little speck is the building. So no matter how much I, zoom in at, I don't know if anybody's looking. The problem is I've got to go through this to get there. At that distance.
Would that be the bulge?
Oh, it's not bulge, but this is modelled. If you look at the right view, this is the actual arc of the Earth at 6,000 odd kilometers.
So what was
radius.
it that you had to go through? I didn't quite catch that.
All right, so there is no bulge, obviously, because it's a downward angle. It doesn't bulge up or anything, because you're always looking at a descending.
There is supposed to be a bulge. So what's the obstruction on your model that you're seeing?
There is no obstruction. It's the fact that this is further round the arc.
Sorry, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah, we have an obstruction figure in the curve mathematics based on the standard model. We have a sagittor. You have a rising Earth bulge between you and target that causes the obstruction according to the standard model of Earth. Why are you saying there is no bulge? I know why you're saying it, because it's not possible to model. You can angle your camera down and kind of induce a bulge.
No. What I'm actually saying is there's a bulge if I look up. It's not. There's no bulge when you're looking at a decreasing surface. You're just looking at a decreasing surface. There is an arc that goes away, yes, but I don't call that a bulge in 3D graphics.
So what's the obstruction then in your model?
The arc, and it's further behind that. The arc.
Sorry. So could you also call an arc a bulge as it's getting in the way?
No.
Why not?
No.
No, it is just a bulge is something that to me in 3D graphics comes up and goes down. This doesn't. From my viewpoint,
If you throw a straight line, if you throw a straight line from the observer to the bottom of the building,
guys, can I wait a minute? No, can I just explain something here? I'm talking in 3D graphics. So first of all, let me make an observation on this. That is a building. I clearly cannot see it over this horizon line. Absolutely, at the distances that I've been given, at the scale that I've been given. Yeah, right. Absolutely. This here is not something that rose up. It's always curving away from it in my reality.
Yes, but relative.
So yes, if you were to say relative between me and that,
relative from the observer to the target, is there a bulge between the observer and the target or not?
If you make it relative point to point, yes.
Correct.
Right. So there's a bulge in the way between us and the target. Thank you.
Yeah.
So why isn't that there in the picture, do you think?
Call it a bulge.
Hold on. We're coming to the conclusion now. Why isn't that in the picture, would you think?
The arc of the Earth is hiding it.
No, it's not hiding it. We do see the buildings.
You mean in your picture?
Sorry, this is just a model. Yes. Sorry, let's just get that absolutely clear. What you have on your screen now is just a bullshit pseudoscience proof of nothing model. Okay?
If you want to say that the evidence that I've got on screen...
Sorry, it's not evidence. Do you live in that computer simulation?
The evidence that I've got
Do you live in the computer simulation? Is that where your feet are planted, in that computer simulation?
No.
No. So it's a proof of nothing, pseudoscience, R-assuming model that proves zero. Right. Now we have reality, photographs of buildings. Now, you think they're interesting, and I assert that you think they're interesting because in your world, they should not be there. Would I be correct in that assumption? That you think the buildings we see aren't there?
No, should not be visible.
Sorry, we do see them. They are visible. We just established that.
Yes.
Well, so we see them, don't we?
Yes.
Right. So why would that be interesting? Why would that be interesting? We just see a building across the way. Why would that be interesting?
Because you shouldn't be able to.
Sorry, because your pseudoscience proof of nothing simulation says we shouldn't see them.
Because...
Sorry, I'll repeat it. You seem to be hesitant. You're saying we shouldn't see them because your proof of nothing, pseudoscience, earth begging the question model says we shouldn't see them. Even though I don't live in your model. It's just a model. But we do see the buildings. Why would you assume that we can't see them just because your pseudoscience model says so?
Why would I assume that we don't see them?
Yes, you're telling me they're not there. Are you dumb? You just said we shouldn't be able to see them, implying that we can't see them and it's some sort of observed...
Wait a minute.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut
mind.
up! I haven't finished my sentence. You would assert that it's some sort of phenomena based on what your proof of nothing model asserts.
I wouldn't assert anything.
You think they're not there.
Okay, you think that round is a square. If we're just going to chuck allegations at each other, they've got no ground.
No, it's not an allegation. According to your begging the question, proof of nothing, are assuming perspective omitting Earth curve model, they shouldn't be there.
Correct.
Right, but they are there.
Observable in the photo, correct.
Obviously and observably there. So why would you assert that they're not there? The answer is because mathematics...
No, wait a minute. I think you've got this confused.
I'm not confused. You think you don't see something that is actually there.
Don't try to obfuscate it. The model didn't work.
Now, can everybody just calm down 2 seconds? Can everybody calm down?
Your model based on your globe.
Oh my goodness!
Can you stop interrupting him? Shut up, Dean. Dean, hold on, Arwin. Let me just berate this asshole. Shut up and listen to what he is saying to you, Dean. Do not interrupt with "Oh my God." Do not agree or nod or say no. Wait till he finishes what he says, and then give us your religious belief about it.
Right. So, yeah, your model, and I'm pretty impressed with what you did there. Looked pretty good.
Cheers.
Pretty, yeah, that's nice. But the thing is, you tested the observations, the distances, you inputted all the data according to the model, which is based on how it is supposed to be according to the globe system. And then you did an observation. You rendered an observation within that system. And it did not match the reality, the real observations that we did with camera in the real world. That has only one logical conclusion to it. And that is that your model doesn't work. It's flawed. It's broken. It does not yield a real result. It doesn't give you the output that matches the real life observation.
So now can I answer what I was trying to say?
Can you respond to my statement?
Yes. My answer throughout the last 10 minutes of rant was, yes, you are all correct. The model that I have just put down here right now, based on a distance of 28.97 kilometers away with a building that is whatever the size of the building, I have observed in my little model here that I should, this little speck, which you can all see if you're still looking, that little speck is the building, and it's behind this much of surface. So yeah, that's incredibly interesting to me. I do not for 1 second assert that the building is there, we just can't see it, or it's an invisible bit, or any bullshit like that. I'm actually now saying, yes, this is actually quite interesting. I will look into what could cause this. One of those possibilities is the Earth is flat.
What do you mean causes it? Causes what? We just see a building. There is no cause here. The only reason for there to be a cause is if you use a begging the question, proof of nothing Earth model that tells you it shouldn't be there. Suddenly it becomes interesting. I just see a building. Why is it interesting?
All buildings are interesting.
Well, it's just a building, a photograph of a building. Suddenly you think, I'm getting muted by trolls now. So this Dunning-Kruger asshole is coming in to mute the hell out of me while I talk to the Hangout, right?
You broke up then. Sorry, I didn't hear.
No, I'm getting muted by some asshole who doesn't want me to point out the reality that you're dealing with. You're saying that it's interesting because we shouldn't be able to see it based on your begging the question, proof of nothing Earth model.
Sorry, you did break up again.
Yeah, I can see that I'm getting muted, yeah, and people can still hear me no matter how much I get muted. I'm just unmuting myself. You can ignore my question, but you're basing the fact that it shouldn't be there on the fact that your model says it shouldn't be there, but we do see it. You think that's interesting because a model says we shouldn't see it.
I find the whole thing interesting, yes. If you're talking, I can't hear you. I don't know what
that's because the trolls constantly...
Yeah, it's because when you have a crap point and you say it's interesting that a model says we shouldn't see something, well, that doesn't mean anything. We do see it. We just see it, right? But you say it's interesting because a pseudoscience model says we shouldn't, which is absolutely meaningless. Why does it suddenly become interesting?
I'm not going to answer that question because it's
pretty... Is it interesting to you because it'll make you rethink your reality and what you believe? Is that why it's interesting?
It's interesting because I cannot explain it at this moment in time, and
There's nothing to explain. I keep saying this. Explain what? We just see a building. What are you trying to explain? It's a concrete noun. There's a building. What are you trying to explain? We just see it.
You keep modeling these observations and you're going to realize it's flat, bro.
Nathan, I think what he's trying to say is that he accepts that there's an issue. I don't think he's trying to argue that...
Well, I'm trying to establish what that issue is. What's the issue here? We just see a building. Why is there an issue suddenly?
Well, the issue is that you've stated multiple times that I have a religious belief. If I've got a religious belief and you say, "Hey, there is no God," and here's a little bit of evidence that might support that fact, I'm not going to go, "Yay, there's no God, awesome."
Hang on a minute.
I'm going to say, "Well, hang about. That's an interesting thing. I'm going to have to ponder it because I've got to find that that's the highest probable explanation."
There's no explanation required. We just see a building. I keep trying to ask you what's so interesting about it. What needs explaining? There's a building. I see it. What explanation is required? Why is that interesting? What's the big deal? It's just a building, right?
Nathan, we got him on the fence, okay?
I'm going to keep hammering the death out of him until he admits that it's only interesting because he's got a pseudoscience religious belief in a globe, and that pseudoscience religious belief says the building shouldn't really be there.
Well, he needs some time to let it sink in. He is realizing this.
Maybe.
He's basically saying that.
He just had a good laugh a second ago, Arwin. I don't think he's realising it. I think he's taking the piss.
Maybe we'll find out sooner or later.
I assure you that I'm not taking the piss.
All right. Well, why is this building... Okay, listen to my question again, right? Listen carefully. Why is a building we just take a picture of, anything more than just a building we take a picture of, why is it suddenly very interesting, that building?
A building in itself depends on the... I'm a designer, so the building might be interesting.
Why?
No.
Why is it interesting in context to this debate?
Oh, because on my assumed input mechanics that I have...
Sorry, by assumed input mechanics, do you mean religious belief?
No, he means his model.
Yeah, that's his religious belief, Anthony.
So...
You need to give him some time.
Let me rephrase it, because it's not going in. Why can we see it in real world, but on your model it said we couldn't?
Oh, I don't know.
Can you say your model is broken?
I wouldn't have thought so because...
Wouldn't have thought so. It doesn't work. What kind of dumbass are you? You don't think it's broken? It doesn't work.
Dean, do us a favour.
I explained that 5 minutes ago.
Dean,
it doesn't coincide with real-life observation.
Do us a favour, Dean. Would you model it on a flat plane and tell us if, once you zoom in, could you see it?
Oh, no, of course I could.
Right. So of the two probabilities, which one is likely? Is it the one that can't see it because of the Earth curve bulge thing that's in the way? Or might it possibly be that the Earth might not be a bulge-ridden sphere thing and we see it because it's not a curve?
Because it's there.
If I was presented only with those two, then yes, I'd support what you just said.
Great. So we've presented you some evidence, real world, that we can see stuff because it's there that defies your model that you demonstrated, and you've not really produced any evidence whatsoever for this view that you have this belief, but you still think it's a ball, right?
I don't think it's a ball. I think it's a planet, and there's a high probability of it.
Well, you know the size that they tell us it is, right?
Yeah, because I've had to input the radius here, which is a radius of 63,701 kilometers, it says.
So unless you're going to argue that there's numerous mirrors dotted along the surface that are going to bounce the light around it, how is it possible that we can see that stuff?
I don't know. That's one of the most powerful things that you can say. I don't know, and I'm interested in finding out.
What do you mean you don't know?
Take some
hold
time
on.
to think about
hold on. What do you mean you don't know why you can see it? You can just see it because you've got a set of eyeballs. What are you talking about? How many times have I got to ask you this question? There's nothing interesting. You open your eyes, you look, you see.
Is that you don't know how to shake it off and just kind of open the eyes and wake up and say, oh shit, something,
That kind of stuff takes time, guys. We all had like the 3 months sleepless nights. It takes time to sink in. Okay, I genuinely think that Dean here just got on the fence. He is realizing it now. He just needs some time to let it sink in. It's no use like going all hardcore on him and just demanding he surrender like it's some inquisition. He needs some time to think about this.
Yeah, okay. Try and think about this, Dean. Those buildings are just there. We can just see them. Nothing special about that. Just see them.
There is.
Model more of Ranty's observations. Go to Ranty's channel, subscribe, look at his observations, model a bunch of them, and bring some next time you join.
It's all right. Who's Ranty?
The guy who took the
Ranty
pictures you were
Flat
looking at.
Earth.
Oh,
He
right.
does
Okay.
great observations with the P900 almost daily.
Okay, I shall have a look at his channel and get on there now, actually.
Excellent.
I'll give you some kudos. You seem to have slightly more intellectual honesty than most of the Globers that come in here.
Well, there's one observation that I've always had in the flat Earth, globe, planet people, or whatever, and that's that people tend to try and defend, like actually Nathan says, they try and defend them like religious beliefs. And I've seen similar things, you know, in when people are defending Christianity or any of the denominations of Christianity, which I think there's 30-odd thousand, or any of the other religious practices, and people get very heated, and sometimes it's good entertainment, and sometimes it's, you know, it's fun, but it's never a good idea. Whether it doesn't matter who's right or wrong, and it doesn't matter whether you believe you are or not. You have to always consider the possibility that you are wrong. And the strongest thing that you can say sometimes is, I can't explain that and I don't know, but I find it interesting, because to me that means I'm going to look into it. Now, in this as an example, I find that photo interesting if I take it on face value and all that kind of stuff.
Why?
So,
It's just a picture of a building.
No, please let me finish, Nathan. And I know you love, and this is one of the other problems why you will get people frustrated and then leave, which I'm sure makes brilliant entertainment for audience members and things like that, but it doesn't actually get you to a logical, nice debate and exploring how someone thinks, because it doesn't matter that I've got a different view to you or that anybody has. It's actually interesting to hear why.
Sorry, the view we have is of a building.
I was talking metaphorical view of everything, but yes.
Well, I'm
you
not.
have as a building.
I know you like to talk in metaphors. I'm talking about a building we see. We just see it. You look at it, I look at it, we just see it. Right? But for some reason, suddenly that becomes very interesting to you. And I would like to know why.
I think I've already told you that.
Because he's a Glober, Nathan.
Dean, just give it some time.
Why? Just tell me again. I don't understand why you'd see a picture of a building and suddenly go, oh, this is something I must look into. You just see a building.
If you do it like that, then yeah, that's ridiculous. But a building at distance holding a belief of a curved surface, then yes, I find that interesting. I don't care how you want to phrase it or how you want to say, oh, my view is completely opposite to yours. I don't give a shit. I'm saying I find it interesting because it contradicts with what I think, but I'm big enough to say that. And I don't mind saying it. But I've also got other problems, and there are a few other problems with that.
Mm-hmm.
So the issues for me, and it's the same thing about laser tests that FE Core did, these are on a scale that's actually quite hard for me to comprehend the full breadth of.
Not really. It's 18 miles. Can I ask you a question? When you said before that you were you couldn't explain it, there is an obvious explanation for why we see them buildings.
Well, there's one explanation that you can put forward, yes, but there's a few that isn't the only explanation of why we'd be able to see those buildings.
Okay, so
are
there others?
I keep saying this. Why do we need an explanation?
You don't.
There you go.
We don't need any explanation.
You don't, no.
Right. Why do you need an explanation?
Because it doesn't fit with my perception
religious
of reality.
belief? Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't fit with your religious belief, so suddenly it needs explanation, does it? I just look at it and see it.
No. Not explanation. It needs investigation.
Why? Because it doesn't fit with your religious belief. So things that don't fit with your religious belief suddenly require exploration, do they?
Absolutely, or else I would be a following dick that doesn't actually want to verify anything.
What, verify what? You've just seen a building. What are you trying to verify? You just see it. You're trying to verify that it's not there?
No.
Right, but you just see it, so what needs verifying?
How I see the light from it, if there is a curve. And if I can't find any, then yeah, there's a high probability that I don't see a curve at that point,
You
or that
mean
it's
that you're basically
All right,
saying
all right.
that your model is broken.
Can we try it from a different angle? Ranty, are you still here?
I think we've been joined by John as well. You appreciate that you're live, John, I hope.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'd like 90 seconds before you close out the show, please.
Yeah, if you like.
Before that, Dean, do you have Skype? Because I would love to contact you and just have a good one-on-one conversation.
Yeah,
with
sure.
you.
Okay, go ahead, John.
You getting ready to close out, Nathan?
Yeah.
All right, listen closely. I'm as serious as a heart attack here. These last two debates, this was the single greatest performance by a flat earther that I've ever witnessed. If you were right here, Nathan Oakley, I'd decorate you myself. This is the standard. So, flat earthers, listen up. Before you go out and frequent these debate circles just to hear your own voice and make a horse's ass out of yourself and by proxy your fellow flat earthers, you need to listen to these two debate shows over and over again to permanently imprint this standard of performance in your mind. Okay? Thanks for your ear. Have a nice day.
And on that very complimentary note, I'll say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, you know precisely what to do. But if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. Also, a massive thanks to all who hit the super chat. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!